For 15 years, the advertising industry sold corporations a flawless promise. By shifting their budgets out of traditional media and into digital channels, brands could finally achieve perfect hyper-targeting, reaching exactly the right customer at exactly the right time. But the financial returns didn't match the sales pitch. When we examine the balance sheets of the massive brands that moved the majority of their marketing budgets over to digital, their long-term compound annual growth rates stalled. Look at Procter & Gamble. They dedicate an estimated $2.5 billion a year to digital advertising, yet their revenue growth has hovered near 0.6% for a decade and a half. Meanwhile, brands like Progressive or Hershey that maintained their broad-reach television spending steadily outpaced their digital-heavy peers. The problem comes down to basic math. Digital advertising hyper-targets the 1% of consumers who are already familiar with a brand or actively looking to buy. By focusing exclusively on that tiny sliver, brands abandon the greenfield, the other 99% of people who aren't currently shopping but will be eventually. When brands stop investing in new customers to target the same 1%, the top-line revenue stops moving. For companies like Nestle and P&G, this digital-first strategy resulted in 15-year growth rates that failed to even keep pace with GDP inflation. And if the marketing strategy was flawed, the underlying data of the internet is even worse. We know that actual human usage of the internet, mobile devices, and social media hit a saturation point years ago. The amount of time real people spend looking at screens has plateaued. This chart tracks that activity. Those flat lines represent maximum human attention. But look at the line for digital ad spending. It aggressively diverges from actual human usage, soaring ever higher year after year. There are no extra human eyeballs to look at those billions of dollars in new ads. That massive gap is being filled by infinite bot traffic, engineered specifically to absorb the excess cash flowing into the system. The digital advertising ecosystem is a trillion-dollar illusion sustained by fake metrics. To understand how this happened, you have to look at the plumbing. Advertisers no longer buy space directly from legitimate websites. Instead, they buy through programmatic ad exchanges, automated black box middlemen that route ads across the web in fractions of a second. Because these intermediaries take a percentage of every transaction, their profits depend entirely on sheer volume. They make more money when more traffic passes through their pipes, creating a massive financial incentive to look the other way when that traffic is fake. This enables people like Boris, a prolific digital fraudster profiled in 2015. He freely admitted to reporters that he bought fake visitors to his websites, building a lucrative publishing empire where 94% of the traffic was bots. This highlighted Reddit post shows a modern operator who openly states they are running 99% fraud sites, buying fake traffic for pennies and selling ad space for a massive profit, all while scoring high with the industry's verification tools. Programmatic exchanges convert every fake impression into a transaction fee. In this ecosystem, fraud generates the volume necessary to sustain the middleman's profits. Occasionally, the sheer scale of this manipulation spills out into public view. In 2016, AppNexus, one of the largest programmatic ad exchanges in the world, decided to initiate a massive purge of fraudulent inventory from its platform. Take a look at this graph tracking their impression volumes. When they finally scrubbed the bad actors, the volume plunged by 92%, dropping from 260 billion impressions down to just 20 billion. The math is inescapable. Nearly everything flowing through one of the internet's primary advertising arteries was entirely fake. That purge proves we aren't dealing with a minor rounding error. The fraud constitutes the vast majority of the inventory. So if fraud routinely hits 90% or higher, how does the ad tech industry convince global brands that the problem is practically non-existent? They rely on legacy verification vendors. This table, published by an industry trade group, shows the invalid traffic rate reported by these vendors, consistently hovering under 1% for 9 straight years. But those tools have a fatal flaw. They rely on pre-bid filters that can easily be blocked. Fraudsters simply strip the tracking code out of the ad, and the verification vendors report the resulting no data as no fraud. Dr. Augustine Fu, an MIT-trained researcher, has spent 15 years exposing this exact cover-up. He points out a glaring conflict of interest. Legacy vendors are paid per impression. If they actually caught the fraud and reduced the volume, they would destroy their own revenue stream. Ad fraud remains rampant because it is an incentives problem, guarded by the very companies getting paid to stop it. Today, the Department of Justice and the NCIS are investigating the conduct of the world's largest ad verification firms. The industry is being forced to account for a decade of reported metrics. Major lawsuits are mounting, and Fortune 500 brands are finally waking up to the failures of their black box reporting. Operationally, advertisers are shifting away from these conflicted intermediaries. They are adopting independent post-bid JavaScript measurement, like FAL analytics, tools that explicitly do not profit from media spend. Survival in the modern digital economy now requires brands to verify the raw data themselves, rather than blindly trusting the middlemen to grade their own homework. To fix the broken marketing funnel, brands must take two critical steps. First, they must actively cut off the bot-driven criminal ecosystem by demanding absolute transparency on what impressions are verifiably human. Second, they need to execute a strategic rebalancing. Brands must return to pitching, using broad reach awareness campaigns to cultivate that 99% green field of future buyers. Once that broad awareness generates genuine human intent, clean, highly verified digital ads can be used strictly for catching those sales. By aligning their financial incentives with independent transparency and rebalancing their media mix, brands can finally stop funding the illusion and resume authentic economic growth.